Hello again, class. Let me pick up where I left off up here at the top with the menu. So I'll take you through some of the main things you'll use in this menu. I'm not going to mention everything because that would take too long, and we're not going to use some things until later in the semester. So I'll just mainly stick with some of the basics right now. So up underneath Dreamweaver, you'll have like the shortcuts and the preferences. If you go into the preferences, you might want to flip through those. There may be a few things that you might find interesting, accessibility related, coloring, format, code, things like that, CSS styles. So you may want to check those out. The defaults are fine. That's all I'm going to use for my demonstration, but that's where you're going to find the preferences. Okay, let's go back to file and let's do file new. I want to show you a little more about that before I move on here. If I do file new, blank page, HTML, layout none, check out the document type over here. There's by default, it may be set to a transitional XHTML. There's also a 4.01. This is going to affect the way that the code gets written behind the scenes. Now, for most simple websites, like what we're doing to get started, just simple websites with CSS for the layout, this probably won't change much of anything. But you may eventually, you don't need to worry about it right now, but you need to understand that it's there, that you can choose the version of HTML that you want Dreamweaver to write. So it will write the code in HTML5, which is the standard that's being adopted right now. It's not finished yet. The code is not finished, and browsers do support most all of it now, but it may not be set to that by default. So, but for what we're doing, you can just leave it, at the 1.0. That's okay. Okay, I'll cancel that. All right, back underneath file, you'll see, let's see, save as, that kind of stuff. There's an import, there's an export. We probably won't use those too much. We'll use preview in browser quite a bit. So once we save this, I'll go ahead and save this in a second. You can preview it in a browser. You can edit your browser list and set up your shortcuts and everything. If you want to go ahead and save while you're here, let's do a file save. What's going to happen is it's going to default to some location on here, whether it's a previous website or it could be your hard drive or something. I want to show you this because it's important that you do not go directly to file save in Dreamweaver. You need to first set up a website. Okay, so I'll probably do a tutorial movie on setting up a website, or maybe I can add it onto this one also. So when you do a file save as your document. You can certainly save that, but it's going to cause you problems if you don't create your website first. I've already got a site created, so it would save it in there, but I'm going to create a new one for you guys here in a second. There's an edit menu. There's a view menu also that has some of the same things, like you can switch your views on here. Window size is also listed under there, magnification. Grid can come in handy sometimes, grid and rulers and all of that. If you want to help with your layout. Here's your insert. That's where you find things like your images, image objects like fireworks, HTML, or rollover images. This one comes in handy if you want to do your rollover images there. Media is where you'd find Flash, so you would do the SWF or FLV videos. Tables, layout objects like your division tag. If you're familiar with CSS at all, you'll use division tags a lot. Links, you can do it that way. There's a better way to do it that I'll show you. So HTML things, like text objects, you can do it there. Here's a modify. Page properties comes in handy. Modify page properties, and you'll find your background color, text color, things like that. And you're probably going to want to stick to CSS when you do that. HTML, it'll write the code slightly differently, but it'll still work for you. But you'll probably be doing CSS for most things. That's what I would recommend. So you can do your background image there. Your margins, which if you do your margins in CSS, that takes away that little space at the top of your browser and the left side of your browser. That's okay to do. The links, that's where you can change the link color. Like if you want just generic for all the links on your website or web page. Links, rollover, visited, and active. things like that. So tracing image is kind of cool if you want to use that to kind of do an image in Photoshop and kind of rebuild it. You can do that. Remember, I mentioned this before, but I do not want you to take a layout in Photoshop or another graphics program and rely on slicing and HTML that program generates. What you'd want to do is, if you create your layout in that program, you want to break that down and then rebuild it the correct way in Dreamweaver, like with CSS. Okay, so let's see. We've got modify, not much to format. These are different ways to do what you can also do with the properties. Commands, that runs into stuff that we would get to later on, deals with some scripting languages. Site is very important. That's where you can generate a new site. That's the most important thing on here, and checking your links, things like that. So I'll come back to site in just a second. Window, we've been through a few things on window, but this will make the things that you see pop up or go away, and you can also bring in other panels that we may use from time to time. But the workspace layout's probably going to be the biggest thing right now. And then your help function also, you probably won't need that with all the different tutorials in the book we've got going. Okay, so I'll cut this movie off. That completes the basic, just give you an introduction to what you're seeing on here. Again, just a summary for this. This is going to be the WYSIWYG part, this main white area right here. Your code, that shows you what's being written on here. You can see the document type. Let's say I do a new file, new, and I choose HTML5 and create one here, you can see that's actually a little slicker. So that might be nice for demonstration, just to keep everything current. So I may switch to HTML5. But this is HTML5, and this is the XHTML 1.0 transitional standard. So I think they're picking that for browser compatibility to get you the most compatible out there. If you look at the actual code, though, the actual HTML, it's all going to be pretty much the same here when you get into the actual bulk of it. Okay, well, that's it for this movie, and I'll give you one more on setting up a website.